Creating data entry forms that function as the end user expects is a pretty important task, but it isn't as straightforward as you would expect. Because Access saves data into data tables on the fly, you need to take extra steps when you actually want to cancel out of a data entry procedure once it's started. In this movie, we're going to start building a solid data entry form and then refine it over the next few movies. Before we get started in this chapter, I just wanted to mention that I reset some of the startup options that we had modified in the last chapter, so that we wouldn't have to hold down the Shift key on the keyboard every time we want to open the database. I also removed the AutoExec macro and the background form, and changed the splash screen to not hide the ribbon any longer. That should put us in a good spot to continue developing our database. Okay, so let's start building a form for entering in a new customer. From my main menu, I have a button right now that takes us to a reports screen. If I click on that, it opens up this main menu reports form. I'm going to use this form as a template so that I keep a consistent header at the top of all of my forms. What I want to do is make a copy of this. I can do that by going up to File, coming down to Save As, and choosing Save Object As. I'll press the Save As option here, and I'll make a copy of this called Add Customer. I'll leave it as form, and I'll say OK. That'll create a duplicate of my report menu, but it'll call it Add Customer here, and I can see it in the navigation pane here. Let's go ahead and start modifying this structure. I'll switch my view into Design View here on the ribbon, and I'll double-click here the report menu to change its title to Add Customer. I'll get rid of the 3 buttons that are on this form, and I'll just hold down the Shift key to select all of them and press Delete. Now I want to make some changes to the properties. If it's not open, go ahead and open the property sheet using this button on the ribbon, and then we're going to switch to the datasheet properties here. We're going to set a record source that's attached to this form. Using the drop-down menu, I'll choose the Customers table here. I'm also going to come down here to this one that says Allow Edits, and I'm going to change it from Yes to No. We want this form to add customers only. We're not going to edit any existing customers with this particular form. Let's go ahead and open up the Add Existing Fields section here, and we'll add all of the fields from my Customers table into this form. I'll just click on the first one, shift-click on Email, and I'll drag them and drop them in here. Finally, I need to connect this form to my main menu so that it opens up in a mode where it only allows me to add customers. Let's go ahead and close the Add Customer form. It's going to ask me to save it, and I'll say yes. We'll go over to my main menu, and I'll right-click on it and say Design View. And I'm just going to make a copy of this Reports button. I'll select it, Control-C, and Control-V to paste in the copy, and I'll drag it over here. I'm going to make it a little bit wider, and I'm going to double-click on the title here where it says Reports, and I'll change it to Add Customer. Next, let's go ahead and change some of the properties for this button. I'll go over to the Property sheet, and on the Format tab, I'm going to go over here to the Picture property here where it says Image. I'll click Build, and I'll choose a new picture caption for this button. I'm going to come down to the S's, and I'm going to find a button option called SharePoint List Change Permission for List. This one here. It has a little picture of a graph and a couple of people, and I think this represents adding customers. Let's go ahead and say OK. It'll change the graphic on my button, and I'll just resize it to make it a little bit smaller. OK, now let's change what this button is going to do. I'll go over to the Event tab of the Property sheet, and on the OnClick event, we have an embedded macro that was copied over from this Reports button. I'll click on the Build button over here on the right, and change its macro. First, we want to close the main menu, which is this first step here. It's going to close the current object. The next step is to open a form, but I don't want to open up the main menu Reports form. I want to open up the Add Customers form. So I'll change this to Add Customer. Finally, I want this data mode here to be Add mode. This will open up my Add Customer form in a mode where it only adds data to the database. It doesn't edit any data. Let's go ahead and close the macro and save the changes. And that's all we need to do to add this Add Customer button. Let's go into Form View. We'll press Add Customer. It's going to ask us to save because it's closing the main menu, so I'll say yes. And it opens up my Add Customer form. Let's go ahead and try typing in some data. I'm going to type in 3001 for the customer ID, and for the first name, I'm just going to write in the word test. Now, notice that I don't have any save buttons on this form. But if I press Return to Main Menu, what happens is that data actually gets written into the Customers table. I can go over to the Customers table and double-click on it to open it, and then scroll down to the very bottom to see. And there's our new customer that we just added, number 3001, and the name Test. Let's go ahead and get this out of our database. I'll just right-click on it and choose Delete Record. It's going to confirm that I'm deleting the record, and I'll just say yes, and then I'll close my Customers table. Let's go ahead and back into our Add Customer form. Now, because of the way Access stores data, as soon as I close this form, it actually does two things. It saves whatever values I've typed into this form, and then it closes the form. So what I need to do is create a couple of buttons that actually delete anything that I've had in here in case I wanted to cancel out of the operation. So my return to main menu button really should say save and close. And then I'll need a new button that says cancel. Let's go ahead and create those two buttons on our form. I'll go ahead and right click and change this form into design view. For my return to main menu button, I'm going to click on it and come over here to this all tab, and I'll change its name from BTN exit to BTN return to main. And I'll change its caption from return to main menu to save and close. I'll go ahead and press enter to save that option, and you'll see that my button updates here. So let's go ahead and add a button that'll cancel out of this operation. I'm going to use the button wizard up here. I'll click on button and come down and just drop in a new button. When the wizard starts, I need to figure out what exactly I want this button to do. So I don't want it to just close the form. I actually want it to clear out any things that I might have typed in. In order to do that, what I can do is go to Record Operations and choose Delete Record. That'll clear out anything that I might have typed in. Let's go ahead and say Next. I'll go ahead and leave this picture caption of Delete Record with this icon right here, and we'll go ahead and say Next, and I'll give it the name BTN Cancel. Go ahead and say Finish to close the wizard. Now let's change a couple more properties on this particular button. I'll go to the Format tab and change it from No Picture Caption here to Left. That'll create text on the left side of the picture. The text is going to be this caption here. I'm going to change it from Command 21 to Cancel. Now let's resize our button to make sure that's exactly the same size as our Save and Close button. I'll Shift-click to select both buttons at once. I'll come over here to the Arrange tab, and I'll go to the Size and Space section and choose 2 widest to make them the same width. Then I'll come back up to Size and Space and change 2 shortest. That'll make them the same height as well. Finally, I want to make sure that they're exactly flush with the left side of each button. So I'll come over here to Align, and I'll choose 2 left. Next, I'm going to grab all of these items here, and I'm going to drag them out of the way just a little bit, down to about there. Now I've got a button that says Save and Close and a button that says Cancel. We need to do one more thing to our Cancel button. I'm going to select it and go into the Event tab. And on the OnClick event, this is the embedded macro that the wizard built for us. Let's go ahead and edit this macro by clicking on the Build button over here. Now you can see all of this error code that Access put in from the button wizard. This goes through all the records on this particular form and clears them out. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and add a couple of more actions. On the bottom, I'm going to add a new action that says Close Window. When it asks me which object type I want to close, I'm going to say I'm going to close a form, and the name of the form is going to be Add Customer. Finally, I'm going to add one more action. I'll scroll down a little bit. This new action is going to be Open Form, and the form here is going to be Main Menu. So our cancel action is actually going to do a couple of things. First, it's going to delete anything that I might have typed in. Then it's going to close the Add Customer form, and then it's going to finally open up the Main Menu button. So in essence, our cancel button is doing a couple of different things for us. It's not just saving the record, it's making sure that they're cleared out before it closes. Let's go ahead and close this macro. And I'll say yes to save changes. And now let's go ahead and test this out. I'll switch my view back to Form View. And I just noticed one thing that I didn't do is make sure that my cancel button stays attached to the right side of the screen. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'll right click and go into Design View. I'll select my cancel button, and on the Arrange tab, I'll go to Anchoring, and I'll choose Top Right. That'll make sure that my cancel button stays in the correct position. Okay, let's go up to the Home tab, and I'll change my view to Form View. I'll press Save and Close to close out of this, and then we'll come back in using my Add Customer button here that'll open the form in Add mode. Now I'm in Add mode, and I can try entering in a couple of customers. Let's type in 3001, and the first name will be Save. I'll press the Save and Close button. Let's come in here one more time. I'll press Add Customer. This time I'll add a new customer called 3002 as their ID. And this one, I'm going to press the Cancel button. So I'll give it a name of Cancel. And I'll press Cancel here. Now what I hope has happened is that if I go into my Customers table, I'll find a new customer called Save, but not one named Cancel. Let's go in and check it out. I'll double click to open up the Customers table. And we'll scroll down to the end. And here, I've got a customer named Save, but I don't have one named Cancel. So my Cancel button is working properly. So that's the beginning of our data entry form. Remember to fully think through the process of how data gets pushed into the data tables when constructing your navigation buttons to ensure that you aren't accidentally saving erroneous information.